Hello, my internet film friends. This is your film friend Stacia, and this week's movie is going to be the 1958 classic Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was directed by Richard Brooks, who gave us other classics such as Elmer Gantry, In Cold Blood, and Key Largo. He also wrote the screenplay to the movie, and the movie is based on the Tennessee Williams play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, although Tennessee Williams himself did not like this because of the changes that were made to the film. It took out large references to homosexuality in the movie, partly because of the film production code back then wouldn't let you really talk about it. It is kind of alluded to in the movie, but could also, how it is done in the movie, be talking about something else. It's really left up in the air. And Tennessee Williams didn't like the changes. There's changes to the third act. So if you ever see the Tennessee Williams play, it is going to be quite different from this movie version. But is this still a good movie, even though it does not actually represent the Tennessee Williams play as he intended on it? I do believe it is still a great movie to watch. It is presented more like a play. It takes place in one location, mainly of a house, and is filmed more like a stage production than a movie. And it is the acting in this that will really holds you to this movie. There are some of Elizabeth Taylor's, one of her best performances, I believe, is in this movie. Paul Newman does really well playing Brick. Elizabeth Taylor plays Maggie, or Maggie the cat, as she is known in this movie. Burl Ives is also in it, and his performance is quite good. Burl Ives, surprisingly, so his character of Big Daddy was 65 years old, but Burl Ives himself was only 48 years old when he made this movie. And it is just looking at him, I'm like, oh my good God, somebody around my age made this movie and they look like that at the time. This movie also stars Jack Carson as Gooper, Judith Anderson as Big Mama. We have Madeleine Sherwood as May, who is Gooper's wife. Larry Gates plays the doctor in the movie. When you first watch this movie, you will notice that this is a terrible family. Terrible family. The character of May, who is the wife of Gooper, is just a terrible person. And everybody is just terrible to each other in this movie. The only character with redeeming qualities is Maggie, or Elizabeth Taylor's character. Brick is also somewhat sympathetic, dealing with his best friend's suicide and the guilt he feels from that, and resentment he has with his wife, Maggie. But Big Daddy, Burl Ives' character, is also a terrible person. He is one of those closed off, distant fathers who was a, big, rich cotton magnate back in the day. One of the richest men in his area, but conflated the security that he gave his family with his riches, and trying to come up with, a legacy and passing it on to his family. That's what he cared about, instead of actually showing love to his children. The character of Big Mama isn't any better, showing complete preference to the older brother and his family and his ill-behaved kids that if you watch this, you'll just want to punch them. Or at least that was my reaction. My reaction was like Maggie's reaction. Those kids just, they needed something. But yeah, the general story of this movie, it is a family drama. Brick, who is Paul Newman's character, plays an ex-pro football player who is an alcoholic. His best friend has killed himself and he feels guilt over that. He resents his wife Maggie and the relationship that she had with his best friend, or I perceived maybe she cheated on him with his best friend. But he now drinks his days away, and basically there's this family reunion centered around Big Papa's birthday, but Big Papa just had a health screening and he is dying of cancer, and the family, instead of having Big Daddy or Big Mama told about his diagnosis, they have chose to keep it from him that he is dying of cancer. And then these squabbles in who is going to control the family business, with Brick's brother Gooper and his wife scheming to make them sign over the family business, the family land, and the family fortune basically to his control, and cutting out Brick and Maggie completely. And there is a large emphasis on the fact that they have no children. And of that time in the 50s, the play was written in 1955. The stigma of being married and not having children, although it still exists today to a lesser degree, they use that against Brick and Maggie from them being able to control anything because they have no legacy. And I realize what I described may not be your cup of tea of a movie. It is about family strife and relationship, but this movie is held together by great performances and dialogue, and especially the acting is not the modern acting that you see where it is based more on reality. It is that 1950s acting, which, if you've never seen it before, it takes some getting used to. But if you are a fan of theaters and plays, you will certainly like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof as well. At the 1959 Oscars, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was nominated for 6 awards. It did not win any of those awards, but the awards that it was nominated for was Best Picture, Best Leading Actor for Paul Newman, Best Leading Actress for Elizabeth Taylor, Best Director for Richard Brooks. It got a writing nomination for screenplay based on material already published. And it also got nominated for Best Cinematography Color. And speaking of the cinematography done in color, was significant for that time for this type of movie to be done in color. Because usually in the 1950s, movies with serious subject matter were shot almost always in black and white, and your fun comedies and musicals were shot in color, and specifically Technicolor, which this movie is shot in Technicolor. And the reason why it was shot in Technicolor is because of the lead actor's eyes. Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor are quite famous for their striking eyes. Paul Newman with his blue eyes and Elizabeth Taylor with her violet eyes. So Richard Brooks said, why would you ever shoot a movie with the two of them as the lead actors in black and white? Audiences want to see these two actors' eyes. And speaking of the script changed from the actual stage play, Paul Newman had originally agreed to do this movie because he was such a fan of the stage play. The play on Broadway premiered in 1955. It was directed by Elia Kazan for the stage, and not without its controversies with Tennessee Williams as well. Elia Kazan made changes to the script as well that Tennessee Williams didn't necessarily agree with. It wasn't until the 1970s when Tennessee Williams' real vision of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was displayed for theater audiences. But Paul Newman was such a fan of the original play. That's why he took the part. And he was disappointed in the changes they made in the film. But like I said, a lot of those changes had to take place because of the Hays Code, or the Motion Picture Production Code at the time, that didn't allow those subject matters to be in movies. And about 10 years later, that code was done away with, and now we have the MPAA and the rating system that we were all familiar with today, where it's the G, the PG, the PG-13, the R rating, which is a much more lax rating system than the production code. So I did mention the age of Burl Ives. So his character was 65. Burl Ives was 48 when he made this movie, which leads me into Jack Carson, who played his oldest son, was only a year younger than Burl Ives in real life. And he was only 16 years older than Paul Newman at this time. You either look like Paul Newman or you look like Burl Ives in life, I guess. Burl Ives was also played Big Daddy in the original stage production. Judith Anderson played Big Mama as well in the stage production. So they were reprising their stage roles for the movie version. But in the stage production, Brick was played by Ben Gazzara, and Maggie was played by Barbara Bel Geddes. And neither of those two were big draws at the box office during this time. And when, especially in the 1950s, when you had Elizabeth Taylor and Paul Newman attached to something, then you went with those two. At some points, different actors were presented with starring in the two main leads of this movie. Some of them were Elvis Presley turned down the role of Brick. Marilyn Monroe was very interested in playing Maggie. Montgomery Clift turned down the role of Brick as well. Robert Mitchum also is one that turned down the role of Brick. James Dean was considered for the role at one point, but he died before production started. In 1958, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was also a huge hit. Was in the top 3 biggest grossing movies for 1958. And although this movie is set in Louisiana, it was not filmed on location at all. This is the standard old movie soundstage production, where the exteriors and interiors of this movie are filmed on the backlot of MGM Studios, which is now Sony Studios in Culver City. I believe the MVP in this movie, as far as performances, although everybody does give a good performance of this movie, is definitely Elizabeth Taylor. She was grieving the death of her husband, Mike Todd, at the time, who had died in a plane crash at the beginning of the movie's production. And she was able to channel that grief into a deeply layered performance with emotion of a woman trying to fight for her marriage and her place in this family. And she just gives a wonderful performance, besides just being stunning to look at. This is one of her most beautiful looks and performances she ever did on screen. But as I've said several times, this movie is all about the performances. It is a wrought family drama that is very well acted, although sanitized for the screen from the original stage play because of production code at the time. It is one of those movies that you just have to watch if you're a fan of great performances and stage plays. It's a must watch. It's one of the essential movies of the last century and really gives Elizabeth Taylor her due and makes her, this is part of her lore as the movie icon that she is. But again, I want to thank you guys again for watching and subscribing to my channel. We're on the road to 250 subscribers. We should get there soon, knock on wood. But I'm slowly growing and building this channel, and I do this just because I like to talk about movies, and I love to talk about classic movies because I don't want them to be forgotten. I believe that the new generation, if given a chance, will love some of these movies, and I'm just out here trying to give them suggestions. But if you love movies like me, please comment down below. What is your favorite movie? What do you like or dislike about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof? And give me a subscription, if you will. I would love that. My goal this year is to try to get to 500 subscribers. We're almost halfway there. And I would really love to complete that goal. Like I said, we're almost halfway there. So soon to 250, and then by the end of the year another 250. I believe that is a great goal. But if you subscribe or if you engage in the channel by liking or commenting, it helps YouTube know that people like this content and helps push it out to more people. So I would really appreciate you doing that. But I love you all, and like I said, huge movie fan that just loves talking about movies. If you love talking about movies too, this might be the channel for you. But I love you all. Thank you all for watching. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye.